Cherubim. Okay, very, very exciting message on the cherubim. Why is it exciting? Well, it's the one time we can take something that is in this dimensional realm, in this case, our sketch of the cherubim, and put it into the 3D dimension of the temple. All right, very exciting message, guys. It's really, really awesome to take something and then watch it come to life in the temple. So what we're talking about in this video obviously is the cherubim. In simplified terms, the cherubim will be etched on the walls in the temple, in the holy place, and in the Holy of Holies. Okay, their signature runs throughout the entire temple complex, however, and that's what we attempt to convey in this message, is how the cherubim, they are in the throne, and how the entire temple complex exhibits the characters of the throne itself. So we'll show you how that works. This is a team effort, so you may think that I'm the one doing the 3D animation. No, we actually have a temple team, and 3 of us went into having this come into being, where we get the cherubim as a sketch, put it into a way of making it look like a carving, and then applying that to the walls of the temple in wood. But what we wanted to do is we had to draw this ourselves. We couldn't find any examples online, nothing online that actually looked like the biblical measurements, because we know their height is 10 cubits, the width of their wings is 10 cubits. We see this in the first temple. Of course, the cherubim were designed by Solomon to be in the Holy of Holies above the Ark of the Covenant. So it's the same cherubim that we find in the Ezekiel temple. However, they're not statues, if you were. They are carvings, engravings upon the wood material of the temple. So what we want to do is take what Ezekiel described to us, take what we see in the Ezekiel temple, and also in Ezekiel chapter 1, where we see something called the chariot of the cherubim. So the structure of the cherubim also form his throne, and the moving throne, okay, of the cherubim, and the wheels. Okay, so what we've done here is, it says clearly that one face is the face of a lion, one face is the face of a man. They have wings. Okay, so we get lion, man, wings, eagle. And what we did is, in Ezekiel chapter 1, we see that the cherubim have hoofs like an ox. So we have hoofs like an ox, and we have, a representation of legs like an ox. They're standing upright, but we have, lion, ox, man, eagle in our details of our drawing of the cherubim. Here's a little bit better view of our sketch of the cherubim. And feet of an ox, hoofs, and the wings. And so I just think this is exciting to have this sketch go into our 3D model. Now let's take a look at how the cherubim form the structure of the temple. They form the structure of the courts, the inner court and the outer court. And we gain this understanding by first looking at the cherubim that Ezekiel describes in chapter 1 and chapter 10 of the book of Ezekiel, where we take one of the 4 cherubim, and he describes them as having 4 faces: the face of a lion, the face of an ox, the face of a man, and the face of an eagle. So he gives us the positioning looking down at the head of the 4 living creatures, or 4 cherubim, and we get this explanation. Now, once we know that's just one of the living creatures, and then we take the other 3 and we put them in the orientation of the cardinal points, east, west, south, north. In the center is the throne. So what this is this is all the structure of the sign of the Son of Man. It's called the chariot of the cherubim. Okay, when he appears in the clouds, there's going to be 4 angels standing on the 4 corners. Okay, so when they stand, just like we saw the 4 faces, okay, those four faces then direct and point towards the throne in the middle, so that we get lion, ox, man, and eagle. Okay? So what we did is we saw this as a pattern, as an actual structure of a heavenly order of his throne. And then we took that and took it a step farther, and you get the four living creatures, and we did the same thing. We took the four living creatures, and then we added 3 to each of the four living creatures, and this is the calendar. Okay, this is, again, the heavenly order of the throne. So now what we have is, if we take this information, we take this diagram, we overlay it in the temple, and you see that this is the inner court. So in the inner court you have gates. This is the east gate, this is the north gate, and this is the south gate. And towards the west position, this is the temple. Then if we go into the outer court, this is the east gate to the outer court, the north gate to the outer court, and the south gate to the outer court. Okay? And then we also know that there are chambers that go round about. And so we began to see that there's a perfect order that starts with the cherubim. We take one cherubim, we put them in an order of 4, and then there is an order of 12. But if we take those cardinal points, we can see a perfect order. By the way, this one in the west here is the king's house. It is part of the inner court, but it's in alignment with the inner court. So what we want to do is take this diagram and show you what it looks like when we place it over the temple complex. Okay, let's look at sacred architecture. What is sacred architecture? Sacred architecture is when the Most High, Yahweh, the creator of heaven and earth, built a house, built a temple. And within the structure of it is the order of worship around the throne. One of those major features, of course, is the cherubim. And once again, we as a team, many people have said that, well, Leland, we only ever see you. Where's the team? Well, there is actually a temple team. And I'm just hugely blessed, because that would have been impossible to do this video. So as we explained, we have the 4 faces looking down at the 4 faces of the living creatures: lion, ox, man, eagle. At which point they form the structure of the chariot throne. This chariot throne is detailed in Ezekiel chapter 1 and chapter 10. It's called the chariot of the cherubim. There's some verses there on the side. So what it describes is that the 4 living creatures have wings, and their wings point to the center. We're looking down at the living creatures. And to the side of the living creatures are the wheels within wheels, which you see here. So this is the order of this throne, and this throne order is coded into the architecture. Now, the first way we're going to take this view and vantage point, we've taken one living creature, we've added 4, and we're going to apply this to the inner court. We're also going to apply it to the outer court. But what we're getting at is, once we have this arrangement of the living creatures, it is built into the order of the courts and the gates. Okay? So there you have in your visual the living creatures. Okay? Now they're going to be gates in the temple. What we're going to focus on is the inner court. So as we saw the 4 living creatures before in the cardinal positions, this is east, west, north, south. We can see that they form this structure and pattern, and this is called the inner court. In the middle of it is the altar. Now, before we saw wheels, and here we can see represented these chambers forming the order and pattern of the wheels that we saw. If we take this inner court in this order, we can see that the same thing happens in the outer court as well, where we have the east gate, the north gate, the south gate, and there isn't a gate in the west, but it's the king's house. So here you see there's three gates, and then there's the temple. And the outer court does the same thing. We have three gates, and then we have the king's house. Now, in order to make sense of this, let's go back to this diagram. And in this diagram, we've taken the order of 4, lion, ox, man, eagle. In yellow, we have the throne. And then what we did is we took this and said, okay, this is going over the inner court area. And then we have multiplied these, and we found a heavenly order of 12, New Jerusalem, 12 gates, 12 tribes, 12 apostles. Okay? So when we started with one living creature, we have 4, and then we multiply once again the 4 to 12. And what happens here is that this order of the 12, it forms the structure of the outer court. Now, the best way to make sense of this is when we overlay the two graphics. And that's what we're doing here. So that we take that last example that we did, and we showed the inner court. Okay. These are the 4 living creatures. The same exact pattern. Now they're over the gates. They're over the temple. And then when we had multiplied them, they're over the gates of the outer court. This is the east gate, outer court. South gate, outer court. King's house to the west. And then the gate to the north in the outer court. So this is what we're explaining, guys, is that the order in center and order of his throne is how everything is arranged. All the worship is arranged. The living creatures are living, but they are arranged. There's an order to a heavenly order. Now the center is the altar. Okay, so there is another order in which obviously we have his throne. But there needs to be sacrifices. You come before the throne, there must be sacrifices. So the altar is the center feature. And that's Christ's sacrifice for us, being the center feature of the whole temple complex. So this is how the living creatures form the arrangement and order of the buildings. It's not random. It is forming a perfect structure. So that in the inner court we get the east gate, north gate, south gate, and then the living creature is in the temple, and that position here is perfectly in the holy place, which is just so happens decorated with cherubim. Okay, now something very, very exciting. But before we explain this, let's read what it says in Ezekiel about the cherubim. Here in Ezekiel chapter 41 and the latter verses, we're going to start at verse 17, okay, and go to the end of the chapter. This is going to tell us the order and arrangement of the cherubim. And let's remember that what's happening in the temple, it's a restoration of the Garden of Eden. So the Garden of Eden was guarded with what? Cherubim. It was guarded with cherubim, and they could not enter, and there was a gate. Okay? So when we say, okay, here we're looking at the doorposts and the galleries round about in 3 stories, and above the door of the inner house within the wall roundabout by measure, and it was made with cherubim and palm trees. So what this is describing is the holy place. Cherubims and palm trees. Okay, now if we think about Garden of Eden, what do we have? We had cherubim and we had trees, the tree of life. Okay, we know that the palm trees is one of the fruits of the tree of life. That's why they're waving palm trees at the time of the feast. Even now we're in the time of the fall feast. So it was made with cherubims and palm trees, so that a palm tree was between a cherub and a cherub. And every cherub had 2 faces. So that the face of a man was towards the palm tree on one side, and the face of a lion was toward the palm tree on the other side. And it was made through all the house round about, from the ground even unto the door were cherubims and palm trees made on the wall of the temple. Okay, so the cherubims and palm trees are decorated in the temple, and of course that's what we'll show you. All right, and the doors, it talks about the doors in verse 24. The doors had 2 leaves, and the 2 leaves for one door and the 2 leaves for the other door, and on them, the doors, were made of the temple cherubims and palm trees. Okay, so we get the same feature of cherubims and palm trees on the doors themselves, like as were made upon the walls. And there were thick planks upon the face of the porch without, and there were narrow windows and palm trees on one side and the other side on the sides of the porch and the side of the chambers of the house, thick planks. So what we have is we have palm trees inside the porch, then we have cherubim and palm trees in the holy place, and we have cherubim palm trees on the doors. Okay? Now, what we'll do, we'll explain a little bit later what the arrangement is in the holy place. We just want to take a moment to read what Ezekiel says, so that when you begin to see the representations of the cherubim that we make here, we want to know what the scriptures say. Now, I want to take a moment just to explain how we actually did this. And then I'll explain further what we're actually looking at with this rendering of the cherubim. We actually have 2 renderings, and one is for the holy place. We have another rendering which was for the Holy of Holies. Now, the difference of them is the wings. So the representation we're looking at here shows the wings are extended. But let's take a moment and explain to you how this went into being. So first off, with a sketch pad, I had to draw this. I do not have artistic skills or anything. In order to do the temple, it has to have cherubim. Nobody draws the cherubim accurately. Search. Go ahead. Search. See if you can find it. The scriptures say exactly what the arrangement of the cherubims are. It's in the first temple. They're 10 cubits high. Their wings extend 5 cubits either side. It's very simple. Just read the Bible. So, you know, it would have been great if someone was an artist and they could do that for us, but there isn't. Nobody has the cherubim looking like this. Now, it's tall. 30 cubits is 20 feet. That's what happened in Solomon's temple. We'll explain this arrangement. But what we're doing is we're getting those measurements from the first temple. In the holy place above, the Holy of Holies above the Ark of the Covenant were cherubim. Whether they looked exactly like this, it doesn't say they had 2 faces. It says their face was faced towards the Ark of the Covenant. but they were standing and they had wings extended, exactly like this. So what we had to do is, okay, nobody did the cherubim right, so we had to do it. Okay, and this is what Ezekiel said. You have the face of a man towards one side, the face of a lion facing the other side. So it's a little bit like we're getting a side profile. Okay, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a side profile. And what we did is we took Ezekiel chapter 1 and we took the cherubim that were described there and incorporated that into this rendering. Now there it have 4 faces, okay, but here we know we have 2, but it said it had feet like, it stood upright like a man, and it had feet, hooves, like an ox. So that's what we incorporated here. And then it's the upright as a kind of human upright torso, okay, and then we have the wings. It says it has 4 wings. So that's what we have here. Is 2 wings are covering the body, 2 wings are extended. So what we had to do is we went about, had to draw this. Had to draw this in a certain way, and then what we want to do is take this and use an application to make it look like it's dimensional. Because what this is on the walls of the wood, it's a carving. And in order to make it look like a carving, we used a feature that will add dimensions to a image. So the point of the image is to make strong, bold features of what it is we're looking at, do it in black and white. And then what we can do is we can take that and we can put that into a way it begins to look 3D. And that's what you see here. So this, of course, is the cherub that's in the holy place. You don't see the wings extended. But what we did is now you can see our drawing. Now you can see that it looks as if it's been carved. It looks like it's been, we have a piece of wood, it looks like it's been etched. The cherub is etched into the wall. And that's exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to take what it says and have a rendering that looks dimensional. Okay? It's not just flat paint, it's not a painting. It is a it's carving. Okay? So that's what we have here. And then what we do is we have this example, and what we can do is we can then take this and overlay it over a wood kind of backing or facade. Okay? And that's what you see here. Is you have the carving and the piece that we have here, and then we overlay it into the temple, and we have put a wood into the 3D model, and then we overlay the graphic, okay, onto the wood, and now we actually have, I think is fascinating, a drawing that I did in this dimension going into the dimensions of the 3D temple. Amazing. But we had to do it, guys, and big thanks to everybody that helped with this. This was impossible without you. You know who you are. So this is, this is hugely exciting to get close. We're not saying everything we're doing is perfect, but we're getting close. Now, remember what it said. It said that there was a cherub and a palm tree, and a cherub and a palm tree. Okay, so that's exactly what you see here when we're looking at the holy place. We're looking at holy place. This is the incense altar. It's heading into the door. And now what we've done is we've taken, there's lots of palm trees. You can do any palm tree, and that's what we use there. We didn't have to draw the palm trees, but we took those and we placed them into the temple. Now, as we look here, one thing I want to draw your attention to is the height. We have precise heights. Everything has to be perfect. So the precise height of the cherubim here in the holy place and in the Holy of Holies is 10 cubits. And so is the palm trees. Believe it or not, if you're actually to take not the leaves that go up, but if you actually take the top of the palm tree, we actually position that as well to be 10 cubits. Okay, we'll explain later. We have multiple witnesses as to the 10 cubits. So this is what our arrangement is of the cherubim, and you see their wings are not extended. Well, the reason for that is we have palm trees here. And then we have another example of the cherubim in the holy place. And that looks like this. Okay, so now what we have is in the Holy of Holies, if I said holy place, excuse me. Once we go into the Holy of Holies, we're taking the first temple where the cherubim were standing and they were statues. But instead of them being statues, they're carvings. They're on the walls. And what they did initially in the first temple is they were over the Ark of the Covenant. So the Ark of the Covenant would have been here. Now let's take a moment and read exactly what we're looking at here, so you're not just taking my word for it. 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 20, and the oracle, or the Holy of Holies, in the forepart was 20 cubits in length, 20 cubits in breadth, and 20 cubits in height. It's a perfect square, 20 cubits. In the height thereof, it was overlaid with pure gold, so that it covered the altar, which was of cedar. So Solomon overlaid the house with pure gold and made a partition of the chains of gold before the oracle and overlaid it with gold. And the whole house was overlaid with gold. And he finished the house so that the whole altar of the oracle he overlaid with gold. Verse 23. Within the oracle he made 2 cherubims of olive tree, each 10 cubits high. Remember how we showed you the height was 10 cubits. This is where one of the sources. 10 cubits high. And 5 cubits was one wing. Okay, so one wing pointing in one direction, 5 cubits. And 5 cubits was the other wing of the cherubim, from the uttermost part of one wing unto the uttermost part of the other was 10 cubits. So the length of the 2 wings together, 10 cubits. And the other cherub was 10 cubits. Both the cherubims were of one measure in the same size, so they're identical measurements. The height of one cherub was 10 cubits, and so was the other cherub. And he set the cherub within the whole inner house, and they stretched forth their wings of the cherubim, so that the wing of one touched one wall, and the wing of the other cherub touched the other wall, and their wings touched one another. Okay, you see what's happening? One wing is touching the wall, on one cherub, the other wings touching the wall on the other cherub, and then their wings touch each other as they're extended, right? And the wings touch one another in the midst of the house, and he overlaid the cherubims with gold, and he carved the walls of the house round about, carved figures of cherubim palm trees, okay, and open flowers. So what? Cherubim palm trees, just like we see in Ezekiel. Okay. Now what we have is we have a drawing and a rendering of the first temple. What we're doing is we are looking at a side view of the Holy of Holies, so that its length from one end to another is 20 cubits. Its height is 20 cubits. And now what we have is we have the cherubim with their wings extended, and it says their face was facing the Ark of the Covenant. So here we have the Ark of the Covenant, and we have the cherubim above. So the cherubim are 10 cubits, as we saw. Half of the height, okay, of the Holy of Holies. The reason for that is above there are chambers, and they are occupying the space above the height of the cherubim. So this was the arrangement in the first temple, and you can see we took the same order of, well, there's also chambers. We'll do a future video on that, but the extended wings touching the wall, and touching one another, and then we have the throne. Now, when we take this and we look down, we see an amazing order of the chambers, which number 24 chambers. And then the actual perfect center of the first temple, when we look down, of the Holy of Holies, is the Ark of the Covenant. So we have 24 chambers representing the 24 elders, and we have cherubim representing the living creatures, lion, ox, man, eagle. So in the first temple, obviously it said specifically the height of the cherubim is 10 cubits and the width of their wings. Now, another place where we can confirm this, we had a previous video on it, and it is the Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel, the year, month, and day that Ezekiel records in prophecy. He says the year, the month, and day. What they do is they show temple measurements. So in a previous video, we show how the temple, okay, it would say this year, the 30th year, the month, the 4th month, the 5th day, okay? And how these are perfectly showing the number of measurements in the chambers. And you can see also the height of the cherubim that's on the walls. Height is 10 cubits. And the palm tree, okay, height 10 cubits. It just so happens Ezekiel chapter 24 verse 1 says, in the 9th year, 10th month, and 10th day of the month. Well, those two tens, what they are is cubits, and that is precisely the height of the palm tree and the cherubim in the temple. So we have other videos where we talk about this, Ezekiel time, and then we've talked about the north and south chambers, and then each time we talked about the temple porch. All those dates are measurements. And here we're just reminding you that the cherubim and palm trees were also coded in the book of Ezekiel in time. So hopefully we learned the profound significance of the palm tree and the waving of the palm branches, and the significance of the cherubim. So the cherubim are more than just carvings and engravings. They show us the entire layout and heavenly order of the entire temple complex. How the buildings in the inner court and the outer court form the structure of the heavenly pattern of the heavenly throne of the cherubim. So guys, all glory to the Lord Jesus Christ, that we would worship him, that we would magnify him, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. All this information means that he is King, he is Lord. We're in the apocalypse, we're in the time of his revealing, we're in the time when these things must be explained properly. In order to do this, you can see we have had to do our own rendering, our own representation, taking what the scriptures say, okay, and we herald him as king. We wave the palm branches. We know the palm branches and the fruits of the tree of life is the restoration of the Garden of Eden. We know it is Christ returning, that he who overcomes he will allow to eat of the fruits of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise. So there is the restoration of Eden. We can see that the cherubim, their profound significance of guarding Eden from the east, okay, and how they are decorated in the temple with palm trees and with cherubim. So we hope that you have learned something in this video. There's many charts and diagrams, of course, that we've showed you. In fact, let's show you those on the website. Okay, here we are on the website, lelandjones.com. And at the main website, you see the choices, and one of them is video courses. If we move our mouse over video courses, you can see charts and diagrams. Now, this video is actually part of the Millennium. Okay, let's just show you this real quick. So in the Millennial page, okay, that's where you see the series Temple in 3D. Okay, so this video will appear there. You can see all the other videos, and then you can see all the documents we've had part of the series. But if we look at the documents that are just general that we have on the website, video courses, charts and diagrams. Then under charts and diagrams, you can see the heavenly pattern here, and this will show you the diagrams we've shared in this video. So guys, thanks for watching. We hope you're learning some new things. We hope that you are watching and praying, that you be accounted worthy to escape all these things that come upon the earth. The voice came from the throne saying, "Praise our God, all you his servants that fear his name, both small and great."